like really what kept me going was fear, anxiety, and stress. Because I'm like, I gotta pay the bills. I just got to the point where I'm like, well, I got no other choice than to pick myself back up and figure stuff out again. Like I remember sitting on a chair after I just got fired by a client, and like the initial reaction was like, not again. I can't do this again. Like as soon as I took that attitude of just like, I got hired by a dream client like bar none. The pay was double from the client that I had previously, and the work hours were pretty much cut in half. They fly me to Sydney for free, like every quarter. They pay for my hotels. I get like about 2 months out of the year completely off.
What would you say are some of the beliefs around money and closing premium clients that you needed to start making? Like what, you make like 150 grand a year now?
Fail as much as possible, as fast as possible. Because the more you do that, the faster you're gonna be able to learn and get to where you wanna go. That's what I didn't do very well in the early stages of my copy career. And I think that's one of the reasons why it took me a fairly long time to get to a place where I made like 150 grand a year.
What is the biggest client getting lesson that you're going to take into the future as a copywriter?
Like one of the big mistakes that I made when I really needed to get clients was that.
All right, we're here today with Jyry Korkatti. He's a six-figure copywriter living abroad in Bali, and he's worked with some of the top direct response companies in the game, made his clients loads of bucks. He's done a lot of really cool stuff, and I have the privilege of working with him actually in the email dojo. He coaches a lot of up-and-coming copywriters and also some really, really experienced copywriters, helping them level up their copy and just level up as a copywriter in general. So nice for you to be here with me. Thanks, man.
Yeah, awesome to be here. Looking forward to chatting more.
Yeah, I love it. It's so cool. I'm in such a different setting for this interview. Like we're here actually in Harajuku, Tokyo, and it's like a really great vibe because there's like a Starbucks just around the corner, and like we're at the top of this building. So yeah, it's a great scene. And you're in Bali, right? Like right now, you just got a new villa.
Yeah, I just signed the lease. I'm thinking of staying here probably until June next year. It's a great place. I love the new spot. Feels like home.
Why Bali?
So initially I moved to Bali. I did a student exchange over here, like just for 4 months, and I just felt like it was a place for me. I felt at home here, very happy, and then we got into a relationship with a girl that lived here. So before that, I had always wanted to like move online and quit my job and work from anywhere. So that kind of served as a stepping stone for me to finally get started with copywriting. So I just started figuring like, so cool, how can I live abroad and make money while being there? And well, it's the usual story of writing how to make money online on Google, and then coming up with copywriting and buying a course, and the rest is history. So it's pretty similar for me as for many others as well.
Yeah, I remember you told me like you used to be in insurance and you used to sell, and it was back in Finland, right? And then you did you actually move to Bali after you started making money as a copywriter, or like what was the timeline like there?
Yeah, so I made a pretty crazy jump with that. So when I moved to Bali, I had just finished my exchange semester here in Bali, and I had already gone back home. I spent like 3 weeks home, and that's when I started looking into copywriting, and I bought a course, started going through the course, and then like 3 weeks into buying the course, I'm like, all right, I'm gonna go all in. I'm gonna quit my job back home. I'm gonna book a one-way flight back to Bali. And I didn't have any clients at the time. I just had the mindset of, well, I'm gonna put my back against the wall, so I have no other choice than to make it happen. And then I think about 2 months from that, I signed my first client for $2,000, yeah, the rest is history. And then, then the unthinkable happened. 2 months after coming here, COVID hit, and I'm like, everyone's going crazy. I have no income. So then I book a flight back to Finland again, and I work from there for like 6 months and come back to Bali once again. And now I've been here for years since then.
It's definitely something that I've noticed, working with you, that you have you're very confident. When you want to do something, you double down really quickly. Like, that's not the only time that you double down, right? Like, you had a client that you were working with, one of your first clients that you worked in-house for, like one of the big direct response companies. Quite a lot of people know this company. And then, you went completely all in on freelancing and transitioning out of that full-time role. And actually, not a lot of copywriters are comfortable doing that. Like, you're one of the very few people that's just like, all right, I want to do this thing. I'm like going for it. I'm not gonna half do it.
Yeah, but it was a struggle. Like, you probably remember, I had, like, after going freelancing, it took me quite a bit of time to like build myself to the standing where I was making good money and having a decent lifestyle. And then like 2 times I lost all. Like, there was a week's period where I lost everything. Went from like making 12 grand a month straight to zero. And then built myself back up once again, lost it all again, built myself back up once again. And yeah, now it's like, for the longest time, it's been very consistent and just like, yeah, good balance with everything. And I learned a lot of lessons from those mistakes as well.
I actually remember the call that we had. I was in Montreal, Canada. I think it was early morning my time, because you were in Bali, and we were just, or maybe I think you were in Finland at the time, and I just remember we were sitting there and we were thinking of the options, and it was like, should I go back to the sales world? Like, do I really, can I get this copywriting freelance thing going? Like, or should I go back into like a full-time copywriting role? Like, I remember we were chatting about it back and forth. We're like, you got to keep going, but at the same time, like, maybe this is just not the timing. I remember that conversation. It was like very, very shortly after that you got all that momentum. What helped you during all those months at zero to just keep going with this? Some people would have quit. Some people would have just said, you know what, like, copywriting's not the thing. I'm gonna build an Amazon business, or I'm gonna go get into crypto, or I don't know, something else. But you managed to stick with it. What did you do to keep that perseverance?
I think at the time, like, when it was happening, it was just like really what kept me going was fear, anxiety, and stress. Because I'm like, shit, I gotta pay the bills. So it's like the amount of time it would take for me to start something new with like no previous track record or no experience. It would take me a decent while to get it going to the point where I'm making like good money again. So I just got to the point where I'm like, well, I got no other choice than to, just pick myself back up and figure stuff out again. So that's what it was at the time. But I think with the most recent one, I think where I've had when you mentioned like, you've always sensed like that I have a lot of confidence, that I go all in on things. I think what really shifted me last time when I kind of went back to zero again was that this happened to me like 3 times already, and every time it happened, like, it might have taken me a couple months or 3 months, but I always ended up in a better situation than I was before. So last time it happened, it was about a year ago, and like the previous me would have gotten like anxious and scared and starting to like scramble clients like desperately, but the new me, after going through like all of that experience and struggle, was like, all right, I've been here before, I know better. So instead of getting into that fearful state, I actually consciously focused on, like, I remember sitting on a chair after I just got fired by a client, and like the initial reaction was like, shit, not again. Like, I can't do this again. And that's probably when we had the conversation about me maybe going back to sales or whatever. But I think like it took about an hour after getting fired by that client. I was still sitting on that chair, and I just remember kind of opening up my body, like just like taking up space, and really relaxing. And remember saying to myself, all right, whatever better the universe wants to give me, like I'm ready for it. Like bring it on. Like this is what I've been waiting for. And like as soon as I took that attitude of just like coming from a place of complete abundance, despite like losing everything once again, 2 weeks after, I got hired by somebody like a dream client, like bar none. I'm still working with this client to this day. The pay was double from the client that I had previously, and the work hours were pretty much cut in half from what I was working previously. And this client, they fly me to Sydney for free, like every quarter. They pay for my hotels and everything while I'm there. Like I was just in Sydney in December 2023. Like I haven't gone there now for quite a bit, but if I wanted to, I could go there like every 3 months to just travel and see stuff. And it's been an amazing client. We have a lot of fun working together, and I get like about 2 months out of the year completely off, and I have time to like work on my hobbies and do other like fun stuff in life that I didn't have the chance to do before. So I'm very grateful to be where I'm at right now.
Yeah, man, that's it's crazy because I think a lot of people, like what you mentioned earlier about losing a client, but also just I like what you mentioned about how going into something else and changing career, or like going into a different business, you recognize that there is a time aspect to that, and that's like the biggest cost or biggest opportunity cost or biggest obstacle to achieving the next thing. And I think people don't realize that sometimes. They're like, oh, I'm gonna just build an Amazon business, or I'm gonna just do this other thing, or I'm gonna just get this job or that job. And it's like every time you shift, right? Every time you make that shift to something else, it's like you're starting from scratch. You've got no experience. You have no advantage over anybody else because everybody's at zero. So you're playing. The playing field is way too even. The playing field is the same for everyone, and it's like I don't really want to play a game that's even. I want to play an unfair game. As a copywriter, I have an unfair game. I have, coming close to a decade of experience. I have more money in the bank than I need clients for. I could say no to a client any day I want. I have like plenty of results that I could, showcase, demonstrate that I'm good at what I do. And it's like if anybody tried to join the game today and compete against me, it's an unfair game. I would win, right? And it's the same for you. You'd also win. And it's like why build something else? So I think people underestimate the power of that compounding effect. And I know you had already got experience before, but maybe for some of the people listening and watching this, and they think like, oh, I've been in this game for 6 months, I've had a couple of clients, but maybe this is not for me, maybe I should go into something else. It might be the case, it might be worth going into that other thing, but maybe first just consider the fact that like every time you start something else, you're starting that process again from zero, and you're almost always better off compounding a process that's already in motion, compounding something that's already working,
Yeah, I think I was in that similar mindset before. So back when I still worked my sales job, I would often like switch companies like quite often, and often my mom would kind of bust my balls about the fact that I wasn't consistent. and I always kept jumping from one thing to the next, and she kept mentioning me, like, if you constantly switch directions, you're gonna be 40 and you're gonna be broke. So I've kind of taken her advice, because I've had so many times, even during my copywriting career, which has been almost about 5 years now. Like, I think every 6 months or so, I feel like I want to quit and I want to go and do something else. But then, like, I always kind of remember what my mom told me. Like, every time you switch directions, you start from zero, and it takes time to build that. And then secondly, I think copywriting is a very good stepping stone for anybody that wants to build a business. Like, for example, right now with the company that I'm working with, I pretty much created a whole funnel from scratch for the company. I'm telling the media buyer like when to turn on ads, when to turn them off, and just pretty much managing the whole process. So for me, it's like, okay, if I learn to do this for somebody else, then whenever I decide to go out on my own and start building my own offer, my own business, I know what to do. Like, I have that confidence because I've done it for others so many times before. So that's why I also I don't quit as easy as I once did, because I see the value in that growth and experience.
So it's not something that you've always had then. It's not this mindset that you were born with. I think people don't realize, like, I think most people that are successful, like, they developed, I'm not a big mindset, I don't talk about the word mindset too much, but like, the beliefs that have served you to become a very successful copywriter, like, you didn't start with those beliefs. And I don't think any of us really do. We all kind of develop those as we grow. And when you spend time around successful people, you kind of want to adopt some of those beliefs so that you can be, that they serve you and help you to get to the next level. Like, what would you say are some of the beliefs around money and closing premium clients that you needed to start making, like what you make like 150 grand a year now?
I think one of the beliefs is that there's no scarcity of clients or money out there, really. Like, you have to have the belief that even if things seem like you're struggling a bit, maybe you're worried about money or where your next client is coming from, you still keep it in the back of your mind that, like, there's so many opportunities out there, and you're never going to run out of them. And I think the second thing, it's not that much maybe about the mindset, but I think it's about one of the moments when things really started clicking for me is, so I've used to always been, if I've applied, let's say someone posts on a job board that they're looking for a marketer or a copywriter or whatever, I found that if I apply for that gig, almost 100% of the time, I at least get an interview. And if I get an interview, it's about 80% of the time I'm going to close from that interview. So, and what I've realized, a lot of it just comes down to how many of those do you have. So if I have 3 people that are interested in working with me, like, I'm in a non-hungry state. I'm gonna try to negotiate the best deal possible that I can, because, like, even with this current client that I work with that I just told you about, like, one of the reasons why I got such a good deal with, like, profit share and everything is because on the background I had like four different offers with other people. So when I was on calls with them, I was kind of coming from the mindset of evaluating that, like, okay, what of these is best for me, instead of being in that state of, oh, I gotta prove myself to this person and show that, like, they should pick me. So it's rather, I think this comes down to the mindset as well. So instead of trying to impress a potential client, they should be impressing you. Like you should think of yourself as the prize, and just like, yes, like see yourself as deserving, because when you're in that state, that's when you're able to negotiate better deals. Like I would have never been able to negotiate a profit share with my current client unless I had like 3 other gigs on the side that were asking to get me to work with them.
I think a couple of copywriters are going to challenge this and be like, yeah, you say that because you're already successful, or you say there's an abundance of clients, but you got started years ago, there's not so many today. I've heard that before from a few people, and I have some thoughts I'd like to share, but I'm curious, what do you think of that?
I think there's probably some truth to that, because yeah, I wouldn't have gotten the clients that I have today with the person that I was like 2 or 3 years ago. No way, because my skills just weren't there. But okay, let's rephrase this. There's always an abundance of clients for the level that you're at. I think that's a good way to look at it.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it. I like that. Yeah, there's always, say that again. There's always clients for the level you're at.
There's always an abundance of clients for the level that you're at.
Deep. Yeah, I like that. That's good. That's true. I can see that. With all the copywriters we've been coaching in the dojo, like 100%, right? Like even the ones that are beginners now, like they started a year ago. I mean, one of the guys is I think he's almost making the same amount as you, and he only started a year ago. When he first got his first client, he was making $2,000 a month with that client. But like he was just doubling down on his skill. He was working all day for that client. But then that client gave him, a head nod, like, yeah, this guy's good. I like him, I trust him. And then suddenly he started to close all these other clients. So I've seen that happen again and again, even with copywriters in recent times. It's just like, at least what I've seen is like, you just have to make sure that you're willing to put in the work to develop the skill, to put yourself out there in front of business owners that could potentially work with you, and build a reputation so that like it's a long game. Like we were talking about the time investment, like you mentioned, like 3 years ago, maybe you wouldn't have closed these clients. So maybe copywriters that are starting today, they need to look 3 years into the future, and it's like, hey, yeah, maybe you can make 10K within the next year. I've seen a few people do that. It's not like the expectation though. It's not the average. It might take you 2 or 3 years, but when you get there, it's like life's pretty good. Like if you can get there, you never have to go back. I mean, for you, if you want to, you can keep making this much money for the rest of your life. I mean, I don't see how you wouldn't be able to keep maintaining this income if you've done what you've done and you have the reputation you have. Just seems like it's almost impossible to go back down.
Yeah, I agree. And it's also like this, I'm not sure if you've ever heard, but there's a term called like vibrational set points. I think it's like from John Assaraf or something, where he explains that usually the level of money that you make is directly tied to like the amount of money that you see yourself making. So like I don't
vibrational set points.
Yes, vibrational set points. So I don't believe that I'll ever go back to making less money than I am right now, because I've been at this level so long that it's just like I won't even accept it. Like if I get there, it's like I'm like, this is not me. I'm not staying here. And it kind of like you force yourself to make more than that, because you've set a new standard for yourself at one point, so you want to stick to that.
I've set that for myself too. I didn't know it was like, yeah, I've done that. With my income, and I tell this to copywriters in the dojo too, right? I say like, if you get to a certain income you want to keep, make it for 3 months in a row. That starts to stabilize it. Then it starts to become the comfort zone or the standard. And it's like, if you hit something for 3 months in a row, you're much more likely to repeat that behavior. Like when I hit 10K a month and I did it for 3 months in a row, that's when it stabilized. I'd made 10K, I think a couple months previously, but then I went back down for a bit. I think so. Or maybe it was at a different income. But it's like I made a certain amount, went back down. But when I made the same amount for 3 months in a row, that became the standard, that became the vibrational set point, as you put it, right? And when I got to 25K, it was the same. It was like, I'm not really interested in making more money. until I stabilize this, or I create the set point here. And I've always done it that way. I've always told copywriters, it's like whenever you hit the income that you really want, don't worry so much about scaling to make more income. First, stabilize that and standardize that and get comfortable with that at that income level. And then it's like, it's very hard to go back down from there. And then you can build from your new base, which is like the best place to be. It's underrated. It's an underrated strategy. We see this so much with gurus, right? Because we both written copy for the business opportunity industry, and it's like these guys, they hit their dream month, their best month ever, their target, and it's like the very next meeting they're talking about 3xing the company. It's like bro, just like stay at that income for like 3 months or something, like maybe stabilize your business a bit before you start talking big and thinking bigger.
Yeah, 100%. I think the last one I had was like we had just hit like some really big goal, and then in the next meeting it's like, oh, we're gonna be $1 billion company by 2020 something. I'm like, bro,
of course.
Chill out.
Yeah, and then the client uses ChatGPT to write copy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. That's the secret, man. To get to $1 billion, it's like, let's just use ChatGPT. That's the real secret.
Yeah.
Oh man, so funny. I like that. Cool. So, what would you say is the number one thing that you did in the early days to get good at copy?
Honestly, I would say it's just being hungry with feedback constantly, because like, remember, for example, when I started working with you in the dojo, like I was on every single call. I was posting every piece of copy that I could post, and even like in between calls I would hit you up like, hey bro, what do you think of this? How would you write this? To the point that you probably hated my guts.
Oh yeah. For everyone watching this, I'm gonna cut you off real quick, bro. Everyone watching this, Jyry has this secret strategy for getting feedback from me. And he was the first one that started to do it with me. It's like I'd give him feedback on his copy, and he's like, oh yeah, that's really good. How would you write that section? Because I'd be like, yeah, this is not so compelling, but like the lead could be a little bit better. And he's like, yeah, that makes sense. Like, what would you recommend I write here instead? And then I would end up writing his lead, because I'd be like, oh, well, I would say, and then I'd write the freaking lead. Oh man, it was so smart. Now I have like a rule. I'm like, yeah, you can't say that, because otherwise I just end up writing the copy. Yeah, it was brilliant. That was a good time. I had a lot of fun with that.
Yeah, but I learned a ton from just doing that. Like I was just a sponge with feedback, to the point where all the stuff that I learned through feedback from like people who were at a higher level than I was, it just kind of ingrained into my brain. And like, let's take like a year or a year and a half from there. Like, I'm starting to see that all the famous email lists that I follow, people are copy pasting my copy on the email list using that. I'm like, who the hell used this? Like, I didn't write this. And like, I created all my own like copywriting formulas after that, and now people are copying me with the formula. So that's how it works.
Yeah, I've seen so many of your emails, but like on a different email list. You're the most copied copywriter I think I've ever met. There's like so many of your emails. I think I've even seen a couple of ads that sound just like the ones that you've written. And people, it's like, there's some gurus that are so obnoxious that they're willing to pass it off as their own. Like, they didn't even make an effort to change the formatting is the freaking same, dude. Like, they still leave italics where you left the italics. They still have bold where you left the bold. It's like, it's not even like swiping the idea. It's like the same email. It's terrible. Well, I think it's a compliment. I think when you get to that level, it's like, it is actually like you've actually made it. I feel like that's when you know you're an A-list copywriter.
Yeah, I actually, a lot of people get pissed off about it, but every time I see it, I'm like, oh, cool. Well, thanks for making my day better. It means I still got it. And there's like the client that I worked with last that things eventually ended with. Like even a year after it ended. Like I'm still seeing them reuse the same emails that I wrote, like at least one of them every single week. So yeah, that's a compliment as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember in the early days with your copy, it was a bit wordy, you know, like you had a lot to say. And over time, like we started to clean up the writing because it was very direct response, but there were a few extra words. And when we removed those words, you know, then it like really started to get good. But in terms of editing, like what do you do when you edit today? Like what kind of things are you looking for that I'm pretty sure most copywriters, even like experienced copywriters, they would benefit from some of the ways that you edit your copy?
You mean editing as in what I do after I wrote the first draft?
Like when you look at it, maybe even when you're reviewing copy, like what are you looking for to take it to that next level?
Well, from my perspective, I don't spend a lot of time editing because 90% of the time the first draft is already edited. Like I edit, like, yeah, the funny part, I learned this from you, is I edit before I even write a single word on paper. So, and I think this is also the thing that I look at when I review someone's copy, is like, how's the idea, like the core idea behind the copy? Is it a compelling idea? And before I write a single word, like I kind of map out the idea in my head, and once the idea is mapped out, like it's just, yeah, the writing is so simple. You don't really need to edit after that, in my opinion.
Yeah, for sure. That's a good point that you bring up because a lot of people do actually just think that editing is about cleaning up the words, but the words don't really, if you're describing a tree, it doesn't really matter which words that you use, you're still describing a tree. So, or I don't know, whatever you're describing, right? So it's like, even if you're the best writer in the world and you're describing a tree, if somebody's bored by the idea of a tree, then they're going to be bored, even if it's the best writer writing about a tree. But if you have somebody writing about something interesting, then you could use even very basic language that's not even that descriptive, and it might be a very interesting concept. So that's like copy. It's like, what is the subject of your copy? What is the reason that people care about this? And that's where, I don't know if you've noticed this recently, but like in the last 2 years, business opportunity copy, it all sounds the same. It's all the same. Like all those copywriters that came into our industry that are like not really, they kind of came into the industry as a get rich quick goal. Like they came from those get rich quick copy gurus. They've all come into the space and they're all copying those formulas, and all the clients that they're writing for, it all sounds like the exact same email. And it's like, that stuff's just so boring because the idea is the same thing everybody else has said. So like, even if you're a really, really great writer and you write that email like really, really clean and polished, it's still gonna be incredibly boring and everybody's gonna be like, oh, I heard it before.
Yeah, I think that's why I don't personally focus on editing that much, because for me, I know that like 80% of the success comes from the idea. So sure, I could spend like 30 minutes looking at a first draft and like trying to use more power words or whatever, more compelling words in the copy. But at the same time, you could be spending that time just finding a new compelling idea and writing a new email about it that's going to drive more results than the editing that you're going to make on the first piece of copy. So, yeah. I'd rather pick my battles like that.
So how do you find those ideas then? What are you looking for when it comes to ideas that sell, ideas that catch attention? How do you go about getting them?
Well, what's really good is like some of the coaching calls that I've hosted in the dojo as well. Like some of the calls we've gone a bit deeper into like mindfulness and being in tune with your emotions and things like that, which not a lot of people talk about when it comes to copywriting. It's mainly just about, okay, follow this formula and done. But I feel like when you're really in tune with your feelings, and you're present in your everyday life, like you're mindful and everything, you're more likely to like notice different things around you that you could write something about. Like, I'll give you an example. I think a couple of years back, I went to Vietnam, and we were doing this boat trip, a really cool boat trip on this lake with like mountains around it. And then what was interesting is that the Vietnamese people who were pushing the boats forward, instead of using their hands to do it, like most people would, they were just leaning back in their chair, and they were they were doing it with their legs, like this. And like I thought, wow, that's crazy. It looks so efficient. And yeah, the reason they're doing it because they do it all day long. So it's a lot more, it conserves a lot more energy to keep rowing the boat with their feet instead of their arms. So after seeing that, I'm like, all right, I could turn this to an email for a business coaching niche. So
I was literally about to say you should turn it into an email.
Yeah, so that's a great example of are you working hard or smart in your business, and you just tell that story like, hey, I just went to Vietnam, and I saw this crazy thing, and then I even took a picture of the people rowing the boat because I knew that I'm gonna write an email about it later on. So yeah, you just come up with stuff like that. And some other things is like some crazy ones that I've used before is I would go on these news sites. You can find different news sites on Google that feature like crazy news, especially, and then you just scroll on those news sites, and like at some point you're gonna see something that really grabs your attention, that makes you go like, huh? What the hell is that? And you click it. And then if you read that story, you might realize like, okay, this could actually be tied in to the unique mechanism behind my client's offer. Or it could be tied into like the client's beliefs in some way. Or it could be tied into the product, the outcomes that the product delivers. And then you just combine that with that crazy story you saw in the news with the actual offer. So, like, to give an example, I was writing for a business coach at one point, and the audience was very, I think it was more of a sophisticated audience. Like they were tradies in Australia. And with a lot of them, these people, they could make a lot of profit, they could make a lot of revenue, but they weren't making a lot of profit. And like on the surface level, their business looked like amazing. But when you actually look deep inside, like they might have been bleeding money, they were working like 70 hours a week, never had time to see their family. And it was just like a freaking mess. So I saw this interesting news article of a tree that instead of burning from the outside like a normal tree would, the tree was burning from the inside. So when you looked at the tree, it looked completely normal, but on the inside of the tree there was a huge fire going on. So I basically took an email about it, and I think it went something like, let me try to remember this.
I remember that email. I've seen that email. It's like, is your business on fire from the inside out or something like that?
Yeah, it's like, it kind of went into a story where this tree looks like most business owners. Everything looks great from the inside. Profit,
Yeah.
Like revenue is coming in. Your friends are asking you like, oh, like how do you build such a great business? How are you making so much money? But when you look from the inside, everything's burning. Like you're making no profit. Your turnover is crazy. Employees are leaving every couple of weeks. and all you want to do is just, yeah, jump off a balcony. So it's like, you can, yeah, that's a cool idea to write about.
Yeah, dude, I love that. That's solid, man. I think a lot of people don't. Yeah, copywriters don't spend enough time like living their skill. It's like it's a thing that they turn on, whereas all the good writers I've worked with, like you, and like some of the other people I've actually been interviewing recently, it's like they build their life around their skill, but they also build their skill around their life. Like they integrate them together in such a way where everything complements everything. You know, it's like I'm here in Tokyo right now. Like this is a form of integration. Like we're having a great time. We had a really cool coffee, like iced coffee here, in this really cool building. And then we like do an interview, and then it's going to give me inspiration. I'm going to probably write a post about it on social media later. You know, and it's just integrating this all into your life is what's possible when you're a copywriter, because your work is digital. It's all online, and I think you know, the sooner copywriters learn to embrace their world around them and bring that into their writing, the better they get. Because it's not even just about the idea, right? Like it's also like getting better at talking about the pain points and talking about the things that people are actually dealing with. Like you only get into the depth of the pain. You know, you only get into the depth of the pain when you actually truly understand, or like, how do I put this? You only get into the depth of the pain when you can kind of project your own experience about something. So like, let's say you're in the health industry. It's like way easier if you draw from your own experience, maybe a health scare you had. It's way easier to write in that space when you've already done that. Like that's why I did really well in business opportunity in the early days, because I was buying business opportunity courses myself, right? Like I bought a couple of courses and then I was like, cool, I'm going to draw from that experience to write copy in that industry. And then when I started writing to like business owner, B2B sort of coaching, I was doing the same thing. I was like, all right, well, I don't have a business that is like business to business, but let me pull from some of my experiences and like bring that into the copy. So it really is about bringing your whole life from your experiences, from your feelings, but also like what you're noticing and what you're consuming, just bringing all of it into your copywriting. That makes it human, that makes it personal. I think that's the secret. Secrets. It's the secret.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I think that also comes down to just being mindful. Like the more you're aware of like what's happening inside you, like emotionally, and you sit with that, and you also become aware of everything that's happening around you, and that way you're able to relate to people's pain deeper.
Yeah. You got to be able to feel it. That's an exercise that I used to give people. I actually don't give that exercise as much anymore, but I used to tell people to feel the pain. Like if you want to feel, what is it like to be broke? What is it like to wonder where your next paycheck's coming from? I want you to feel the last time that happened to you, or feel something that's relatable to that. Like you got to sit there and feel the emotion. And I think too many people are afraid of feeling something, and then they wonder why their copy lacks feeling, why it lacks emotion. It's like, well, you're not breathing yourself into your copy. Because that's the thing, it's not actually about the client. I found that my writing, like even though I've written for probably like 30 more personal brands over the years, I still have like, it's still me. Even though I'm them, and it still sounds a little bit like them, there's a little bit of me in every client I've written for. And I bring a little bit of myself into all the clients I've worked with. And I've felt the things, and I've put them in the copy. Like I would have a bad day. I remember I had a bad day. One of my best emails ever was one of my worst days in business. I really felt like giving up. I really felt like I wasn't making money. I really felt stuck and hopeless. I think it was actually my first year. And I remember I was writing this email. No, maybe my second year. But I was writing this email based on that. And I was like, you know what, I'm going to write an email about this, because the people I'm writing to probably feel this way too. And the email was like, when life gives you lemons. And it was an email for one of these business coaches. And I was like, yeah, like life gave me lemons. This happened to me. This happened to me. This happened to me. The guru story. This happened to me. And then I just wrote the email, but like from my perspective, but through him. And it was actually kind of cathartic as well. Like it was therapeutic to me. Like I actually felt a lot better after writing the email. It was one of our best emails that month. Like it just crushed. Everybody was like, oh, this is so resonates with me. And I think I wouldn't have been able to do that if I had just held it all within and been like, yeah, it's nothing to do with me. It's only to do with the client. It's got nothing to do with myself. And I think people don't like lean into that enough. And that's one of the reasons that their copy just stays a 6 out of 10 and it doesn't really go to that next level.
Yeah, it's the same for me. Like when I look back at all the best pieces of copy that I wrote, that I even look back still to this day, I'm like, that was fire. Like I remember while I was writing those, with every single piece of copy, like I just had this fire. You can feel like this fire inside you when you write it. Like it could be anger, like about something, and you just like feel the anger when you write the copy to the point where the keyboard is like on fire, figuratively. Or if it's like a sad one, like you start feeling sad yourself, and excitement, like yeah, all the good pieces of copy, like I felt something like that while writing them.
Some of my favorite ones, you let me know if this has happened to you too, but like especially when I'm selling. So like when I'm building relationships, all those emotions you just mentioned, that resonates a lot. But when I'm doing like a promotional email, like a last chance or like a flash sale or something that's like typical marketing, typical guru stuff, marketing, online marketing, I find myself just laughing like crazy. I just sit there laughing and laughing and laughing like, this is so stupid. This is so stupid. It's so ridiculous. And I'm like, I love it. And they're going to buy. And I'm just sitting there. I always know, like when I find myself laughing behind the keyboard, I'm like, okay, I got a winner. This one's going to work. And it's almost always been the case. It's like I sit there, I'm like, yeah, I can't stop laughing. That's my favorite type of copy.
Yeah, I wrote a lot of, probably when I was still bringing copy to you for review. Like at one point I wrote a lot of like very entertainment type of copy. Everything was so funny. And those emails performed, so yeah, you're right.
That's what it's all about. Like that's what we do in the dojo, right? Like my favorite critique is when I sit there and like you or some other copywriters, excuse me, when you or some other copywriters, you just bring the most stupid angle, and it's a good one. I'm not saying bad. It's just like it's so stupid, but it's so good and it's so funny, and it's like, oh my gosh, this is so ridiculous. I can't believe that we're actually going to say this, and I love it. I'm sold. Let me buy. And that's like my favorite thing ever. It's like when you sit and you laugh about copy, then you know that you're like in the creative mode, because that you gotta feel things. You gotta feel things, and this is not an industry for you if you can't step into that like fun, creative, open energy that's not like holding you back from like, oh, it's like don't create rules. All those rules. I think that's why I don't like the books and the. I mean, there's some books that are useful, but like the principle books where it like gets you so rigid that you're always like, oh, I can say this, but I can't say this. I should say this or I can't say that. Like a lead should say this. A lead shouldn't say that. A hook must say this. It shouldn't say that. Those are the copywriters I find like they take the longest to get good.
Yeah, that's why like when a lot of people, I've been asked this so many times in like interviews and things like that, like, oh, what's your favorite copywriting book? Like when I hear that question, I'm just like I don't know. Like I've actually read so few copywriting books, because like I think they're good in the beginning when you're first starting out and you're like trying to figure out a structure for your work. But after a while, if you keep like sticking to those formulas, they're gonna limit you so much. Like at this point, I don't even know what formulas I'm really using. Like I'm just kind of doing what I think feels good. And I think you get to that point after doing the thing for quite a while.
Yeah, I always say that. Like I just recorded something just before this interview, where I was talking about this concept of write, and then write some more, and that's like pretty much it, right? Like we talk about this at the beginning of our interview today, where it's like you need to have this you need to have this attitude where you go for something, you go all in. You know that it's going to take time, so you're willing to put in the time for it to compound. But that consistency of doing something, even when it's difficult, even when you're not seeing the result, is like really the only thing that, and of course getting some feedback, but like the action part is really the foundation of progress in this career. So if you keep writing, you're going to get better. And then you're going to drop the formulas. You're going to learn that the formula helps you in the early days to write maybe a bit faster or to like write with some structure, but then after a while you drop the formulas and it's just a part of you. And it's a really great experience because, when I started, I don't know how long this took you, but when I first started, it took me like 8 hours to write an email.
Yeah, probably the same for me.
Yeah, I took a whole day and I still wasn't happy with it. And I just couldn't pass it off to the client yet. It didn't feel good. I remember it took me a whole week to write my first 5 emails. Now I can write 5 emails in a day. And it's like, it's a great level up. Probably more, if I'm feeling good. So I can write 5 emails in a day, and that's the cool part of the skill. It's like every year you're in it, life gets better. Your skill is easier the skill is easier. The money, hopefully if you keep taking consistent action, usually goes up as well. Assuming that you learn the lessons early on that you have to be consistent with client getting. Actually, yeah, I'd love to ask you that. Like, what is the biggest client getting lesson that you're going to take into the future as a copywriter?
Well, right now I'm not currently searching for clients because I don't really need any at this point. But I think like one of the big mistakes that I made when I really needed to get clients was that like I was trying to make everything perfect off the gate. Like the outreach message had to be perfect, the loom had to be perfect, and like that first time. So I would spend so much time like recording the perfect video, the perfect loom critique, or creating the perfect cold email structure that like I just wasn't getting enough volume out to actually get any clients. So if I could go back in time, I would take the mindset of, all right, I'm gonna send 10 of these today. They're probably gonna suck. They're probably not gonna get any responses. And once I'm done with these, I'm gonna give them to somebody else that knows how to do this stuff, and I'm gonna have them tell me 3 things that could be done better. And then the next time I send out those 10, I'm gonna implement those 3 things that I got for feedback, and then I'm once again gonna send out the 10. They're gonna suck a little bit less this time, but they're still gonna suck. And then the next day I'm gonna repeat the process all over again. So I think not just with client getting, but like this whole copywriting thing in general, one of the keys is just like don't quit. Like you do the thing every day that you need to do. You suck at it, and you just do it for long enough not to suck at it. That's really how I would
suck less every day.
Yeah, stop being afraid of failure. I think just like actually I would put it the other way. Like fail as much as possible, as fast as possible, because the more you do that, the faster you're gonna be able to learn and get to where you want to go. So that's what I didn't do very well in the early stages of my copy career, and I think that's one of the reasons why it took me a fairly long time to get to a place where I'm making like 150 grand a year. Like if there are some people in your program right now that are making the same money that I'm making, and they're like 1 year into their journey, whereas for me it took like 3 years to make that kind of money that they're making. So I think the big difference with them is just like, yeah, just taking messy action, really.
Messy action, yeah, 100%, yeah. Yeah, that's a really good piece of advice for people. I think a lot a lot of copywriters or aspiring copywriters, they get paralyzed about this, like, oh, it needs to be this way, it should be this way, it should be that way, and they don't actually just go for it. Like, just take some messy action. Don't worry about doing it perfectly, just worry about progress over perfection. Jyry, I appreciate this, man. If people want to get in touch with you and learn some secrets from you, or if a business owner wants you to maybe consult, I don't know if you're currently consulting businesses in their funnels, but I know you're like one of the best in the world at what you do as a copywriter. So if anybody wants to get in contact with you, where can they find you?
I have an Instagram account. It's called The Vagabond Writer. You should be able to find that. I think there's like a lower. Actually, let me have a look, because I'm not sure about the. Oh yeah, it's The Vagabond Writer and the lower dash.
Nice. Cool. I'll make sure to add it to the description as well, just so that people can find it easily.
Nice.
Jyry, I really appreciate this, man. This has been a really great chat. I know a lot of people are going to find value in this. And, especially the beliefs that it takes to get to 6 figures, because most people just, like most copywriters, like they think about the 6 figures and the 10K, but they don't really realize like all the things that came before that to get there. It is a lot, like everything in life, but it's not overwhelming if you just one step at a time, like you said, messy action. So thanks again for the chat today, and I'll see you in the dojo.
Yeah, one thing maybe if you don't mind me adding to that.
Sure.
What we just talked about. Yeah. So I think the whole messy action thing, like the problem with that, I think it becomes that people get so fixated on how long it's going to take to get to a certain outcome. Like, oh, I need to hit 6 figures within 6 months. So when you get fixated on that outcome, that's when your mindset becomes, oh, I gotta get this perfect so I can get to this outcome. But if you were like, I'm gonna hit 6 figures, it's gonna maybe take me 3 years, it might take me 3 months, or it might take me 5 years. Like your whole mindset, because you're not in that hurry, that's when you're more likely to allow yourself to take the messy action, because you don't need it perfect right from the start. You know that it's a process, and you get better in the long run.
Yeah, I like that. Don't be so concerned about the result. Figure out what it takes to get the result, and instead of saying like, how fast can I get the result, ask yourself, how fast can I take the action that is necessary for the result, right? Yeah, I love it. All right, appreciate it, man, and see you soon. Take care.